There is a moment that happens in almost every grandparent's life. A quiet moment. A still one. You're sitting in your favorite chair, maybe by the window, maybe at the kitchen table where you've sat 1,000 times before, and the house around you is silent. The grandkids went home hours ago. Your children drove away after Sunday dinner, and now it's just you and all that quiet. And in that silence, something starts to stir inside your chest. Not sadness exactly. Something heavier, something older. A feeling that whispers, did I do enough? Did I really reach them? Most grandparents push that feeling down. They tell themselves they're being silly. They remind themselves that the kids are busy, that life moves fast, that things are fine. But deep down, somewhere beneath all that reassurance, they know something has shifted. They just can't name it. Today, I want to talk about that feeling, because what I'm about to share with you is something very few people are willing to say out loud. It's the saddest mistake that grandparents make, not out of selfishness, not out of cruelty, but out of love itself. And sadly, most grandparents never realize this until it's too late. I want you to stay with me, because this isn't easy to hear. But it might be the most important thing you'll hear all year. And by the end of this, I believe something in your heart is going to open up in a way it hasn't in a very long time. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself when you answer it. When your grandchildren come to visit, what do you usually talk about? What are the conversations you have with them? For most grandparents, the pattern looks something like this. You ask them how school is going. They say, fine. You ask if they're eating well. They say, yeah. You offer them food. You give them money. You maybe tell them to listen to their parents. And then they drift back to their phones or back to their friends. And you drift back to the kitchen. And everyone goes home feeling vaguely disconnected without quite knowing why. Sound familiar? Here's what's really happening in those moments. Researchers from the University of Michigan, who spent years studying intergenerational relationships, found something striking. They discovered that grandchildren who feel deeply bonded to their grandparents share one thing in common. They didn't just receive things from their grandparents. They received stories. They received the truth of who their grandparent actually was, the real person, not just the grandparent role. But here is where the mistake begins to take root. Most grandparents, without realizing it, have quietly decided that their stories don't matter, that their past is too long ago to be interesting, that the grandkids wouldn't understand what it was like to grow up when there was no internet, no instant everything, no safety net that came easy. And so they stay quiet about the things that shape them. They hand over cookies and cash and keep the most precious things, the hard-won wisdom, the beautiful heartbreak, the lessons soaked in tears, locked safely inside. And those grandchildren grow up never truly knowing who their grandparent was. This is where many families quietly drift apart. Not with a fight, not with anger, just with silence, just with distance that grows one visit at a time. I want to tell you about a man named Harold. Harold was 74 years old, retired, living in a small town in Ohio. He had 3 grandchildren, 2 boys and a girl. He adored them more than anything in the world. Every holiday he was there, every birthday he showed up with a wrapped gift and a card he signed in his careful, old-fashioned handwriting. By every measure, Harold was a devoted grandfather. But Harold had a habit. Whenever the conversation at the dinner table turned to the old days, his days, He would wave his hand and say, "Oh, that's ancient history. Nobody wants to hear about that." And he'd change the subject. He thought he was being humble. He thought he was keeping things light. He thought he was sparing the kids from boring old stories about a world they'd never know. What Harold didn't realize was this. His granddaughter Emma, the youngest one, was 12 years old and quietly struggling. She was having a hard time at school, feeling like she didn't belong anywhere, feeling like she wasn't brave enough, it wasn't strong enough. And every time she came to Harold's house, she was secretly hoping that her grandfather might say something that would help her understand how to get through it. She didn't know that's what she was hoping for. 12-year-olds don't always have words for what they need, but she felt it. 3 years later, Harold had a small stroke. Nothing fatal, but it slowed him down. It humbled him. And one afternoon, Emma, now 15 años, came to sit with him, and she asked him almost shyly, "Grandpa, were you ever scared when you were young?" And Harold looked at her for a long moment. And then, maybe for the first time in his life, he started to talk. Really talk. He told her about the year his father lost the family farm. He told her about the night before he shipped off to serve in the military, how he sat alone on the porch and cried and asked God to keep him brave. He told her about failing his first job interview and his second. He told her about the morning he almost gave up on everything and what pulled him back. Emma didn't say much. She just listened. But Harold told me later, he said the look in her eyes was something he would never forget. She was hungry for it. She had been hungry for it all along. And Harold quietly wept, because he understood then what he had lost. Years of visits, years of dinners, years of waved hands. He had been so afraid of burdening them, so convinced his stories were unimportant, that he had accidentally withheld the one thing they needed most from him. Not his gifts, not his presents. Himself, the real him. What happened in that room between Harold and Emma changed everything for their family. But Harold always carried a gentle sadness that he hadn't opened that door sooner. Here is what I want you to understand, deep in the marrow of your bones. Your grandchildren are not just looking for a safe place to eat. They are not just looking for someone who slips them an extra $20. They are searching, sometimes without knowing it, for proof that life can be survived. They are looking for evidence that hard things can be gotten through. They are looking for a map, and you are the only one who holds it. A landmark study from Harvard, the longest-running study on human happiness ever conducted, followed hundreds of people over the course of their entire lives. And what they found after all those decades, all those thousands of data points, was both simple and profound. The people who lived the longest, happiest, most meaningful lives were not the wealthiest. They were not the most successful. They were the ones with the deepest human connections, the ones who felt truly known by someone else and who knew someone else in return. Your grandchildren need to know you, not the version of you that smiles and serves and gives without asking for anything, the version of you that was 22 years old and terrified, the version of you that made a mistake and had to live with it, the version of you that found God or lost faith or rebuilt it, the version of you that fell in love for the first time and didn't know what to do with your own heart. That person, that is who they are hungry for. So here is what I want to gently ask you to do. The next time your grandchild comes to visit, or the next time you call them on the phone, try something different. Don't just ask about their grades. Tell them something true about yourself. Tell them about a time you were embarrassed or heartbroken or wrong. Tell them what scared you. Tell them what you wish someone had told you at their age. You don't have to make it a formal thing. You don't have to sit them down. It can happen over dishes. It can happen on a walk. It can happen in a 5-minute phone call. And if they seem distracted, keep going anyway. Because here is the truth about children and teenagers and even young adults. They are almost always listening more than they appear to be. They carry what you give them in ways you'll never fully see. Dr. Marshall Duke, a psychologist at Emory University, spent years studying something he called family narratives. He found that children who know their family's stories, the struggles, the failures, the comebacks, have significantly stronger identities, higher self-esteem, and greater resilience when life gets hard. Knowing where they came from gives them the strength to face where they're going. You are not just a grandparent. You are a living archive of everything your family has survived. And every story you share is a gift that cannot be bought at any store, wrapped in any paper, tied with any bow. I want to leave you with something. Somewhere out there tonight, there is a child, maybe your grandchild, maybe someone else's, lying in bed in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering if they're going to be okay, wondering if life is supposed to feel this hard, wondering if the adults in their world truly understand what it feels like to be young and uncertain and afraid. And somewhere else tonight, there is a grandparent sitting in their quiet house, looking at old photographs, feeling the ache of time, wondering if they matter as much as they used to, wondering if anyone would really miss what's inside them when they're gone. I want to tell you something. You matter more than you know. The things you carry, the decades of living, the scars and the grace notes, and the long, slow wisdom that only comes from a life fully lived, those things are irreplaceable. There is no app for what you know. There is no website that teaches what you have learned in your bones. The greatest gift you will ever give is not the holiday check or the birthday dinner or the brand new coat. The greatest gift you will ever give is the honest, tender, imperfect story of your own life, offered freely, offered without shame, offered with the faith that someone on the other side of that story will someday need exactly what you've been through. Don't wait for the right moment. The right moment is right now. Don't wait until you're slowed down by a stroke or a diagnosis or a season you didn't see coming. Don't let the years pile up between you and the people you love most, made of all the things you meant to say, but didn't. Tell them who you were before you were their grandparent. Tell them about the dreams you chased and the ones you let go. Tell them about the marriage that was harder than it looked from the outside. Tell them what your mother smelled like and what your father taught you without ever saying a word. Tell them about the morning you held their parent for the first time, that tiny, warm, impossible weight in your arms, and how you understood in that moment what love really was. Because one day when you are gone, those stories will be all that remains, and the grandchildren who heard them will pass them down, and their children will pass them further still, and in that way you will never truly leave. You will live in the courage of a child who faced their fear and heard your voice whispering inside them, "I've been here before. You're going to make it." That is the legacy that lasts forever. That is the thing worth giving. If this touched something in your heart today, please share it with someone you love. And if you have a story about your grandparent or about being one, leave it in the comments below. This community is built on exactly the kind of love we talked about today.